What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Slate Special Thursday Sports Edition, and that just means we're going to talk multiple sports. A little basketball, a little baseball, maybe mix in some football. Football, I guess, is dead to us for the next little while. We'll see. With Gary and Thorne, Nick Fryer, I'm Adam Kaufman. Thank you for being with us. Thanks to both Eamon and AC behind the scenes, and to all of you for hanging out, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you are finding us. Boys, good to see you.
How you doing?
Yeah, good to see you too.
I'm doing okay. I'd be doing better if we had a more robust NBA slate. Just the little 3-gamer tonight, Fryer, and we have most of our injury news at this point. For instance, Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to play. We know that Chris Middleton is not going to play. DeMar DeRozan is out, I believe, with the quad injury tonight. So he's, we won't see him. Alex Caruso's listed as out. Derek Jones is out. Goran Dragic, not that he's been relevant in years, is not going to play. These are, some of the more notable ones. And of course, we can get to Kevin Love's future, which seemingly will not be in Cleveland in a little while as well. But Fryer, let's start with you. What are you looking at tonight? What, be it obviously DraftKings Sportsbook side or DFS?
So I have, I'll start with the Bulls game since it's the first one on the schedule. I do have a pick for each of these games from the sportsbook side of things. But I do have DFS play for this one. I know Garion actually highlighted in his value plays yesterday, Ayo Dosunmu as a possible value option. I didn't get to talk about him either on the slate or on the sweat yesterday, but the guy that I wanted to go with was Kobe White, and he obviously did very well, a little bit cheaper than Dosunmu. I think both guys are rosterable tonight. If you're looking to save a bit of money or wherever you're trying to do it, guard is an option with the Bulls. Dosunmu is 4.2K, Kobe White is 4.1K. With White, he's provided 6 times value in 4 of the last 5 games that DeRozan has missed. Before they went 37.8 last time, and the time before that, he had 37 DK fantasy points as well. So from the DFS side, I like Kobe White more than Dosunmu, but I want to go with Ayo on the DK Sportsbook side of things. I really like his points, rebounds, assists prop tonight. It's at 18.5 right now, taking the over on that. He's gone over this number in the last 3 games that DeMar DeRozan has missed. He's also gone over this number in 2 of the last 3 games that Alex Caruso has missed. And in those 3 games, none of them are the same one. So he's also a good option, just a slight bit more expensive on the DFS side of things. But his prop right now for points, rebounds, and assists, taking the over on that one tonight.
So if people are building out lineups tonight, Garion, it's not, I'm going to come at Fryer here. It's not revolutionary to say I want, these 2 guys in my lineup because they are going to perform well. And obviously, if they do go off, you want to have them, you want to roster them, you want to take advantage of the value. It goes without saying. But if I'm looking at projections right now, these 2 guys are literally 1 and 2 at the moment in terms of the most projected rostered players tonight. So a lot of people are going to be on them. I don't need to ask you if you love them as well. You probably do. So if you're looking for a pivot, if you're looking to differentiate yourself and still find obviously good value for maybe similar salaries, where are you going to look?
I mean, I think you can sort of gravitate towards the Bucks side of this as well. Obviously it was going to be a bit of a value situation when we found out yesterday that Pat Connaughton wasn't going to play in this game. And then we find out this morning, no Chris Middleton. So suddenly there's a relatively large gap in this team's rotation. I don't think you're going to get the crazy amount of minutes that someone like Dosunmu is going to play in this game on the Bucks side. Like, he's averaging over 40 minutes in those last 3 games DeMar DeRozan has missed. Like, it's incredible how much he's asked to play and do. when DeMar DeRozan is unavailable, let alone Alex Caruso. But I think, Grayson Allen is probably going to be a relatively popular play tonight. You look at what he's been able to do, specifically earlier on in the season when Middleton was unavailable. I think it makes a lot of sense. And then another name that I think, I don't want to say definitively less popular, because I do think his value's been picking up a little bit as of late, but I don't think he's going to play nearly the minutes that someone like Grayson Allen would. But Joe Ingles is just $3,400. Feels like Ingles and Connaughton are kind of like playing a bit of the same role when it comes to this Milwaukee Bucks team. We saw him play 31 minutes in that game against Boston. That was a an overtime game where he had to play the fourth quarter in place of Chris Middleton. But, Ingles isn't someone who you're going to put into a lineup and think, okay, 10x value on its way. But I think expecting probably 6 or 7x value, maybe even 8x value from Ingles, who's probably going to be locked into like 28 to 32 minutes tonight. $3,400. It's a pretty good way to go.
What about everybody's favorite card game, Marjan? You going to go with the big man, or the wing man, I should say?
I just think there's a little bit more risk there. I would say his ceiling is higher. He's had more explosive DFS performances so far this season. I also think that just this game in general is not the most appealing on the slate. Like, I don't know how much I want to stack this game, even if it is stacking it with value. So I think Marjan's viable, don't get me wrong, but I would have him definitively behind the other 4 guys we've already talked about.
Fryer, do you have to have Giannis tonight?
I feel like you do. I've been looking, after you called me out, Kaufman, I've been trying to look at some other ways that you can kind of save some money. Because there are obviously, you don't want to be too chalky, but at the same time, you do need some of these guys that are going to have at that value range, going to have that significant output. Because there's only so many options, and it's going to be hard to differentiate. I think Mason Plumlee's a guy who you can differentiate with tonight. And obviously Giannis, power forward, center, and Plumlee's only a center for DFS purposes, so you can still roster the 2 of them. And Plumlee's at 5.4, right? Yeah, he's at 5.4K tonight. I understand minutes are the concern right now. He's only had 1 game in a Clippers uniform, played 17 minutes in that one. But one thing that, looking at this game, because I do have a prop of his that I really like too. Looking at this one, so no Norman Powell, obviously that does not necessarily impact his minutes and what he's going to do, like how much he's going to play, but that does impact usage out there. And then just this being going into the All-Star break, I know this is not, we always try and lean on more numbers, but from just like a narrative or just understanding of the Clippers standpoint, we're going into the All-Star break. Kawhi likes to get his rest. Ivica Zubac has had plenty of work. He's due for some rest. Paul George has seen his minutes decrease over the last 3 games, not to like this alarming point or anything, but I think he was like mostly 36, 34. And then the last 3 games, it's been like 31 minutes, 32 minutes. So seeing guys getting a little bit more rest, getting a head start on that going into the break. For Plumlee, I would think it would be the opposite because it's a new team for him. Try and jump out. And look, when he's got his minutes, he's really done well throughout the season. And he's still been underpriced the majority of the year. So if you can get that same production he'd been doing, he was doing a great job, like from a dollar to point production standpoint. He was doing great before. At 5.4K, that's a guy I want to roll the dice with tonight.
So when it comes to Plumlee, Gary, and I think that's a great pick from Fryer in terms of guy that is just a logical pivot. Like, nobody is going to be on Plumlee tonight. He's going to be super low owned, and you're just hoping, obviously, like Fryer said, if the minutes are there, he's in a huge potential spot in terms of rewarding you for going there. Maybe people get a little scared off of the salary because you don't know how much he's going to play and adjust with the new team and all of that stuff. If you're looking more toward guys who are, I think there are going to be, because of the value that you've both outlined, there are going to be so many chalky guys tonight. At a certain point, it just becomes combinations, right? Like, which value guys do I want from Milwaukee? Which value guys do I want from Chicago? If I'm going to have Giannis, well, everybody's going to have Giannis. Do I want one or both of Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley? Something like that. What's your approach on that side?
Yeah, I think there are still a couple outstanding news items that could change how we kind of view this slate. Every single absence or availability on a 3-game slate has massive ripple effects. Gobert's been playing more often than not through these questionable tags, but as we've talked about a couple times already, this being the last game before the All-Star break does change the dynamic of some of the ways these teams think about their injured players. I mean, maybe they see a guy in Gobert who's been on the injury report for the better part of 3.5 weeks and go, yeah, maybe you just sit tonight. Like, let's really try to maximize the time off you're going to be getting because of this week-long absence. And, suddenly if Rudy Gobert is not playing, we've got like the Nas Reeds and the Knights of the world suddenly vault themselves into very, very high profile value situations in a game that is far more conducive to being high scoring than that Bucks Bulls game we were just talking about. So I think when it does come to some of this ownership stuff, not take it with a grain of salt, because it's important. You have to understand who are going to be the most popular guys on a given slate, especially a slate this small. But just remember that this could all really turn on the drop of a hat if we find out that Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson are not playing through their questionable tags tonight. In that sense, I do think, to Nick's point, there might be some opportunity to get value out of this Clippers-Suns game where a lot of people might not be naturally gravitating towards that one because there are just more obvious value situations in the other two contests. I do think Mason Plumlee is a perfectly fine play at center. We all know how hard it is to find a value center on a slate this
Not hard
small.
to find a Plumlee, though.
Not hard to find a Plumlee. They are always around. One
Yeah.
is always traded at the deadline. That is an NBA rule. But I look at someone like Terrence Mann, who's $4,600 tonight.
Yeah.
Probably going to be asked to play in the, I would say, low 30-minute range because there is no Norman Powell in this game. Never a high usage guy, but someone who's always just around and playing big minutes. I think Eric Gordon could maybe be intriguing just from like an upside perspective, although I do still wonder what exactly his role is with this team, although it definitely will be bigger with Norman Powell not playing. I think another guy who, this is risky, there is no doubt about that, but how about Terrence Ross? I mean, he's reportedly going to make his Suns debut tonight. They are still a team that is hurting on the wing. They need spacers. I mean, maybe Ross isn't even on this slate. So
yeah, I just looked. He's not even available. Yeah.
So he's such a good variance play that DraftKings forgot to list him.
You can't do it.
But so that's somewhat disappointing on the Phoenix side because I do think he's going to take up a glut of like 15 to 20 minutes on their wing. But like your Josh Okogis of the world, I think the Suns' value is a little less tantalizing just because they've got 3 high usage players still available for this game, and Okogie's salary is starting to get a little crazy at 4,900. But he's still produced over 30
minimum a week ago.
Yeah, it would have been nice. But I just think the LA Phoenix game is probably the game that not a lot of people are looking at in terms of let's find value there. It's more let's stack superstars in that one. So maybe you kind of zig when everyone's zagging.
And to that point too, Gary, that you just brought up about going with the stars. I mean, I understand like Ayton. I saw like Jeff had written something up about Ayton. I feel like I saw someone else talking about Ayton tonight. But with Paul George on the other side of it too, that's a guy like we talk about the high price guys. What's he at? 8.5K tonight? That's someone that I think you should stay away from because I was looking just at his points prop alone. Obviously, he's bringing more to the table than just that, but it's set at 20.5 right now, and that's a number that he's gone under quite a bit. He's gone over actually quite a bit, but the under on his points total this season is 22 and 21 on DraftKings Sportsbook. So clearly the book has a pretty good feel on him, and he's gone under this number in his last 3 games. And when these two teams have met, I think it's only been twice this season, the under is hit in both of those games. And Paul George was held under 16 points in he only played in one of these 2 games against the Suns. He was held like 16 points, so under this point total. So obviously he can go and do other things and still provide some level of production, but just seeing how good of a feel the book has on him, I'd lean away from him. We're talking about superstars in the late game. And I do like the under on his points prop at 20.5 right now.
One other thing, because I know you guys do have your best bets, your favorite picks on the DK Sportsbook. So one other thing, though, on DFS before we go there, because I keep bringing up differentiation. A guy that I brought up before, obviously, in Giannis and asking Fryer, do you need to have him tonight? He's going to be exceedingly popular. He's going to be in whatever, 45, 50% of lineup, something like that. Maybe I'm not saying I would do this or even that I'm going to do this, because honestly, in all likelihood, I'm not when I build out my lineups. But if you're looking for that differentiation play, if you're in a big GPP and you're chasing down the one, maybe you fade Giannis. Maybe you have some like you fade him, you put in Drew Holiday, obviously, because you got to have him. You go with the Chicago guys that Fryer was talking about off the top because they're going to be popular and they should get you your points. You mix in some portion of Minnesota, like we talked about, whether it's Gobert or Conley or Edwards or all three. I don't know. I haven't actually done the math on it. And then, you have to find an alternative big, right? Like we haven't even mentioned Kristaps Porzingis. There are ways that you can build out a solid lineup and not have Giannis Antetokounmpo in it. And it's probably not that far off from being, in that sort of quote unquote optimal conversation, Garion.
No, that's definitely true. And I actually think there are a couple guys on this slate who maybe go a little bit undervalued, just considering how obvious the sort of stars and scrubs build would be on a slate like this, with how much value has been opened up just by the few absences we have so far. But, if you start with Giannis and then you start stacking some of these, other stars, like maybe you go Giannis and Kawhi and then start, putting your DeSumus and your Kobe Whites and your Joe Ingles, and like suddenly you can make that build work. There's this tier of player from like 7.5K to 9K that's maybe going a little undervalued. And I think the number one guy for me in that tier is Kyle Kuzma.
Yes.
Underpriced tonight. I mean, he is $7,900. Kyle Kuzma in his last 30 games has only been priced below $8,000 twice. Like, this is an opportunity to buy very low on Kuzma, who seemingly has no limitations. Like he missed 4 games, came back against the Trailblazers and played 36 minutes and dropped a 50 burger in terms of DraftKings points. So this is the highest total game on the slate by a pretty wide margin. You look at the Timberwolves so far in February, they are operating at the 4th fastest pace in the NBA in the month, which means they've given up the 6th most opponent points per game. They're giving up almost 122 points per game in February. I think the Wizards are probably like my favorite stack, if we're being honest. So if you want to say no to Giannis and put Porzingis and put Kuzma in a lineup and work backwards like that, I have no qualms with that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. No, I almost, when you were making your point before Kaufman, before you threw it to Garen, I almost cut you off at the end and said Kuzma, because that's the guy who I'm thinking. I mean, but Porzingis makes just as much sense too. But at the same time, where like, okay, maybe you want to throw Porzingis in, fine. But I think Kuzma needs to be more of a lock, just because you're looking at what they've done, of late. Yeah, so Kuzma just got 50 DK fantasy points, and I know that we've seen some, like, what was it, the game before that, 12, obviously a lot fewer minutes for obvious reasons, but his floor, yes, I get it. It's not the same as Porzingis, but that's where you're getting that savings from. And that's where tonight we talk about differentiating. That's where you got to roll the dice. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm curious, like, with the projections on Kuzma. I know you said, Kaufman, before about the Bulls guys and how popular they are. I don't know if you're seeing anything on Kuzma.
I'm happy to tell you. Kyle Kuzma is projected to be, at least where I'm looking, and Gary and I would talk about all this all the time. There are different sites, obviously, but where I am looking, Kuzma is projected to be in just north of 25% of lineups, and to give you about 40 points.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll take that all day. So that's 5 times value, just a little bit over that all day.
All right, let's go over to the DraftKings Sportsbook side of things. And you mentioned Fryer. We'll start with you here. I started with Gary last time, but you said you got a favorite bet for each of these games. So Milwaukee and Chicago, obviously, you were talking about DeSumo and putting together the category prop on him and giving a total. Is there another one from this game, or
No, I was trying to get you go ahead and throw it at Gary, and I was trying to get a feel for, like, I always try to start off with gameplay, then look at the total quickly. Usually I go past that fast, but there was nothing else I had to. I mean, I think Bucks, but I don't feel that strongly on them covering. They're obviously, I think they're gonna win. That's no brainer.
Gary?
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at that over in Washington, Minnesota. It has moved. It started the day at 234.5. So clearly people are betting it up. But I think justifiably so. I mean, right now you've just got a situation where these teams are almost like the Eastern and Western Conference versions of each other. Maybe you could say like the Trailblazers are more the Western Conference Wizards, because the Timberwolves are a little bit more successful. But especially if Rudy Gobert does not play in this game. I think that's like a big hinge moment here is the Wolves play faster. They play with guys who can shoot more. Like, Naz Reid is way more of a threat beyond the arc as a stretch five than Rudy Gobert is. But I think especially if Gobert is ruled out, I love the over in this game. But even if he does play, because he's been playing such limited minutes, I still think this game goes over just with two high-paced teams with bad defenses.
Thoughts on that game, Fryer?
Yeah, so I'm feeling a little frisky on this one. I'm taking Wizards money line. I know it's not like some crazy, bet like it would be with the Bulls game because they're plus 295. Right now the Wizards are plus 125. I'm just taking them straight up in this one because the Timberwolves, like as home favorites straight up, they're pretty subpar. I mean, they're still over 500 in that setting, but they're 10-8. That's one of the worst rates in the league as home favorites, so from a straight up standpoint. And as home favorites, when you're talking about the spread too, they're 7-11. So if you want to, play a little bit safer, but at 3 points with these two teams, it's not like we're talking, I don't know if it was like. There's certain situations where I can understand trying to go with the spread instead at such a small number, but I feel like right here, I'd rather just go with the Wizards money line straight up because they're 13-8 straight up on the road too, which 13-18, excuse me, which okay, like that's under 500, but it's actually one of the better records on the road in the league. And then after a win is when Garion said how these two teams are kind of like the same version of each other. This is where they are pretty similar. They both just won their last game, and straight up after a win, the Timberwolves are 15-15, and the Wizards are 15-11. So a little bit better towards the Wizards. Another number that's pushed me in that direction. But yeah, this is the only one where I have like a game pick going with the Wizards to win.
All right, let's stay with you. Go to this last game, the Clippers and Suns. Lowest scoring total or projected total on this very tiny slate at 221.5 as it stands right now. Also a virtual pick'em with the Suns at home favored by 1. We know there's no Kevin Durant. He's hoping to return soon after the All-Star break. Last opportunity here would have been tonight. So what are you looking at in this one?
So I wanted to I was trying to talk myself into taking the over here just because it's such a low number. But I said it before how we've seen these two teams, the under is hit both times when these two teams have met this season. And then just talking, the break and everything. There's too many variables for me to talk myself into that. What I was interested in, I did mention the Paul George play earlier, but my favorite one in this game is Mason Plumlee to go over 7.5 points right now. Look, I know, minutes are a question mark with him, but he got over this number in just 17 minutes last game. I would assume he's going to at least get that amount of work in this game. And again, not looking at it from a number standpoint, I would think other guys are going to get rest throughout the course of this game because we're going into the All-Star break. Ty Lue's going to want to manage his guys and everything like that. But the other thing, too, was he got 17 points in 25 minutes last time that he saw Phoenix. So even if he sees a slight bump but not a significant one, he's gotten this number. He's done pretty well. He can get past this number pretty easily. And then the over, not talking about this number specifically, just the over and under on his points prop throughout the season is 38-16. So when I talk about how the book has a pretty good feel on Paul George when it comes to his points, not the case with Mason Plumlee. And if you think he's going to play a lot of minutes tonight, I think his rebounding total, the over there, is interesting at 5.5. And then points plus rebounds then is set at 13.5 too. So if you want to roll it, I think those are great props to attack as well. But not worrying about the minutes, I think he can get 8 points easy tonight.
Garen?
Well, I'll be honest, I haven't put nearly as much thought into these bets as Nick has, but one prop I do like in this game is just Devin Booker over 24.5 points. I've said it a couple times now that he's still playing with a minutes restriction, but essentially all he's done is squeezed more usage out of the minutes he gets since he has come back from this long-term injury. His usage rate is hovering around 35%. In that span of time. He easily cleared this without even hitting a 3-pointer in Phoenix's last game. It wouldn't be a strong play for me. It's not my favorite thing on the board. Again, I like Wizards Timberwolves, the over in that game more, but don't mind a sprinkle on Devin Booker over 24.5.
All right. I do want to, before we run out of time, mix in, or at least pay off the Kevin Love thing that I brought up earlier. It looks like the Cavs are going to buy him out, allow him to go chase a ring or whatever he's going to do.
Why do you hate baseball, Koff? Why do you hate baseball so much?
I don't want to have a long conversation about this. So we have time for baseball as well. Where do you think Kevin Love is going to land? I have friends that are
Miami,
texting
next question.
paranoid he's going to Philly. You think Miami?
Next question.
What's he going to bring to the table anywhere? I mean, like Kevin Love used to be like. I mean, I think it's kind of proven over the years that a lot of his stats were hollow back when he was at his peak. So, like Gary said, next question.
All right, baseball in the whatever 6, 7, 8 minutes we've got here. The World Series odds got them up on the DraftKings Sportsbook. We'll show them to you as well. Astros are the favorites at plus 600. The Mets not too far behind, even with the Yankees. Must be a New York thing. Plus 750. I'm not even convinced all these rosters are finalized yet, as we are very much in the infancy of spring training. Players have just reported to camps. So, Garion, because you are most eager, what are you looking at? Do you have a slight long shot World Series favorite you're looking at?
Nothing really in the World Series market as of now. Been kind of focused on the team totals that dropped this week. Talked yesterday. Nick and I were both on the slate yesterday. I mentioned I like Yankees over 94.5. Mentioned I like Twins over 81.5. White Sox under 83.5. One team I didn't get to talk about, the Arizona Diamondbacks. And clearly I'm not alone in this feeling because this number is already a little juiced up at minus 115, but Diamondbacks to go over 74.5 wins. There's a chance I'm a year too early on this because I think Diamondbacks 2024 is going to be a very popular sort of like dark horse playoff, maybe even dark horse World Series team. But the collection of talent that they've accumulated in the desert, and they lose Dalton Varsho, who by F-War and B-War was their most valuable player, non-Zach Gallen edition last season. But they've got Corbin Carroll, who seems like front runner for NL Rookie of the Year, obviously was amazing in a limited sample last season, one of the top prospects in baseball. Gabriel Moreno behind the plate. They've got Alec Thomas. They've got Jake McCarthy, like just young talent everywhere. And it's supplemented by still pretty good major league talent. Like Christian Walker was fantastic at first base last season. Ketel Marte, a little underwhelming, but like still obviously has the potential to be, a top 100 player in baseball. I mentioned Zach Gallen. They've got young pitching prospects like Dre Jameson seems like he's going to make this rotation. He's fantastic. They sign Evan Longoria. They pick up a little depth. I just think you look at this team from last season that won 74 games on the nose. They're better. They're much better. They should win at least one more game. And I also think they're another team like that could stand to gain from the schedule balancing MLB is doing this year. Like 6 less games against the Padres, 6 less games against the Dodgers. Like that means something for the Diamondbacks. I just think they go over this number.
Fryer, you want to weigh in on Arizona or look elsewhere?
I think it's a good call. We can stay on this page though, but I do think that's a good call. When you mentioned it to me the other day, Garen, I was like, I didn't know where you were going to go, but it makes perfect sense. And then you didn't even talk about Merrill Kelly, who I still can't believe what the heck he did last season. I know like the last month of the year he had a couple rough starts, but that was a guy who we were fading like crazy the year before. Started doing it to start the season. Last year didn't work out. Quickly pivoted. But yeah, he's another guy too. But anyways, if you go actually right above the Diamondbacks on the regular season win totals, we have the most regular season wins by any team. It is set at 105.5. And if you look at the last four full seasons, so obviously excluding 2020, a team has reached that number. And you're gonna hear this on more shows that we do when we're talking about baseball this year. The scheduling is so important when you look at the American League East, the NL East, the NL West, and I would probably say to a lesser degree, at least to the top end, the AL West, because the Central teams,
it doesn't matter so much in the Central.
The Central teams are like they are so bad at the bottom and both sides of baseball that it's going to make a huge difference for teams like the Red Sox is not a team that I'm talking about World Series and everything, but their win total is set at something like 77
and a half. Hammer the over on 77 and a half.
I actually have a different play for them that I think is a little bit safer, but they're not going to have to worry about the Orioles, who are always a pain for them. And never mind the Yankees, Blue Jays, and Rays, where they have to deal with them not as much. But then the Orioles are another one too. You take 6 games a pop? You're taking that. What's that times 4? Quick math, 24. That's you're taking that away from them. That's huge, and that's good. And I think now when you're talking about the Dodgers or the Padres, or the Yankees, which I know I'm with Gary and he talked about it yesterday, how the over for them, 94.5. I'm assuming it's still the same number, but that's another number that I love. But they could easily get to this mark, and maybe the Astros too. So I think I like the over there. But when we talk about the Red Sox, I've seen this quite a bit. I think Julian actually just tweeted it out. That
I was gonna say, I think I've seen every person who works at this company has bet the over on the Red Sox in the last 36 hours.
So I'm not going there. I will not, I'm not doing the win total. That's, if you want to, that's fine. I'm not going to go with the under there. I don't like that number, for the under. But what I do like is I don't remember which tab it's under, Gary, but where you have the team against each other, who's going to have more wins? Because I know Steve tweeted about it. Steve tweeted about the Mariners and the Blue Jays.
Steve specifically asked for a Mariners versus Blue Jays prop just to make me mad.
And there are, spreads on this and everything too, but Red Sox and Cubs are straight up right now. And if the Red Sox, you take the Red Sox, it's minus 110. I have zero faith in the Cubs. I mean, unless something I understand the Red Sox and how they what they did in the offseason or didn't do. Maybe that's a better way to put it. But just from the scheduling adjustment standpoint, and then talent too, I don't think the Cubs are I don't think they're going to sniff 70 wins, or maybe 75 wins, I'll say, because they could end up with 68 or something like that. Whereas the Red Sox, I feel like they're at least going to be close around the number that we have set right now on DraftKings Sportsbook if they don't go past it comfortably.
77.5 on the Cubs. Okay. Yeah, I just looking at it. Haven't the Red Sox been bet up a little bit too? I feel like they opened slightly lower.
I think it's always been 77.5. I'll say this. It's going to feel really good if you bet that over, because if you take a look at Boston's schedule in April, it's the Tigers, the A's, the Orioles 7 times. They could really get off to a really nice start when that pitching staff's healthy, build up a bit of a cushion and make you feel pretty good about that over number. So as much as I hate the Red Sox, I don't hate betting that over.
It's a good way to distinguish that. Fryer, are you because for anyone that hasn't noticed, Fryer is coming to us live from Jeff's house. Is it Jeff's microphone or is it your microphone? That's the only part of this picture that is throwing me off a little bit.
That's Jeff's microphone.
Okay.
I'm in Jeff's house. So what do you mean? He was in Arizona.
Well, you got to be careful of those hands. You look like you're hitting it.
Shoot, you got me.
Yeah,
it is Jeff's. It's actually not mine. But
there you go.
Didn't think that through, but you got me.
It looks really good though. It looks
I guess next time I'm doing anything DK related where I'm streaming from my home, I'm gonna have to change my background.
Yeah. Gonna have you even got the high chair like Jeff has. It's really just it's a perfect fit.
It's the best part is when it throws off producers. That's the best part.
When did you get to Western Canada? All right. Thank you to Eamon, our producer, Andrew, our technical director. Of course, these two guys, Nick and Gary, and Nick for jumping in. There's no LaMarca today, or Jeff, or whoever we usually have. Jeff, I guess, because not only because Fryer's at his house, but because LaMarca has made it a point to tell me that he's never worked a Thursday at DraftKings in his life. So he will be around tomorrow on the slate, along with I think me. I expect to be here. But guys, thank you very much. There's a Madden simulation coming your way. Football's over. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm very confused by it, and it just makes me sad, to be perfectly honest with you. But what do I do with my hands? Bye.